This pattern is good for using up yarn scraps. The motifs are small. They measure 4.75 inches, which comes to 12 centimeters. And I have lots of scrap yarn. I reuse my yarn a lot. I experiment while I'm designing and developing patterns, and I unravel things a lot, and as a result I have a lot of scrap yarn. And this is all the same color, which is white, and I'm going to start with the biggest ball and show you how I attach the remaining balls, if I need them, with a fisherman's knot. This yarn is Caron or Caron Simply Soft yarn, which is considered a medium weight number 4 yarn, and I am using a 5mm crochet hook, which is an H8. And just want to point out, I use this homemade method to put a gripper on some of my hooks. This is a pen, it's a tube that you put over a pen, and underneath it, it's kind of hard to get off, but underneath it I have just wrapped a bunch of rubber bands. I can't even get it off. And then covered it by sliding the pen, the squishy pen tube over it. Okay, so we're going to start with a slip knot on the hook. Let me go a little slower here. Here's how I make a slip knot. Wrap the yarn around 2 fingers in an X. Hold this strand up here with my thumb. Insert the hook under that part of the X, grab that part of the X, and pull through. Then I remove my fingers from the loop and pull on the 2 yarn ends, and then I pull on the working yarn, not the yarn tail, in order to make the slip knot rather snug on my hook. I don't make my slip knots too snug because sometimes I might need to work back into that chain. Okay, the next step is chain 4. Slip stitch to join in the first chain, and now you have a ring. Chain 3, and that chain 3 is the same height as a double crochet, and it is counted as a double crochet. The next step is to work 11 double crochet stitches in the center of that ring. Now I want to show you that the normal way to work a double crochet, okay, let's back up here, is yarn over the hook, hold on to that, insert your hook into the ring. I can't find the ring. There it is. And then put the yarn over the hook, pull it through until you have 3 loops on your hook, yarn over the hook, pull it through 2 loops, yarn over again, and pull it through 2 loops. Now that is the standard way of working a double crochet. I'll do another one. Okay, for counting purposes, we have the initial chain 3, which actually counts as a double crochet. Then we have the second and the third double crochet stitches that we made. Now, I want to point out something with this particular kind of yarn, Karen's Simply Soft yarn. I love this yarn, but it does have a weakness that can be very frustrating, and that is that it tends to split. It's kind of a loosely wound yarn, and it's rather silky, and as you're working you can sometimes split the strand. In order to overcome that tendency, I've discovered that when I work a double crochet, if I put the yarn under the hook and then pull it through and then put it over the hook the next 2 times, that action puts just a little bit of twist back into the yarn, which keeps the yarn twisted nicely so that it doesn't split as much. So let me show you that again. I put the yarn over, put it in the ring, and then put the yarn under the hook. Pull it through, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. Not only that, but I want to point out, can you see the difference? This is kind of hard to see, but these vertical strands of the first few double crochet stitches I did look rather unwound, whereas look at that one. That one's nicely twisted. So if you have trouble working with yarn that splits, this is a method that you might want to adopt for yourself. You don't yarn over for all of the strokes of the stitch, just after you put your hook through the ring or the stitch that you're working with, then do a yarn under, and then finish the regular way with yarn over, pull through 2 twice. Now, as I said, this is not the standard way to work a double crochet stitch, and in honor of the fact that many crochet teachers will follow the standard method of working a double crochet, I just want you to be aware that this is non-standard. However, I have a preference for doing it this way because of how well my work turns out. So the ultimate goal of round 1 is to have 11 double crochet stitches plus the chain 3 to make 12 total stitches. So let's count, see how many we've got so far. Counting the stems of the stitches, or the posts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I need to add one more. And now I have 12 stitches in the ring. And the instructions say slip stitch to join in the first double crochet, not the top of the chain 3. And the reason for this in this pattern is that the slip stitch actually replaces the top of the chain 3. It covers over and replaces it in the stitch count. Okay, now we're going to work round 2. We're going to work popcorn stitches all the way around this round. The first popcorn stitch is begun by chaining 2, I'm sorry, make that a chain 3. Yes, chain 3, and then 2 double crochet stitches in the same stitch, which is right there. Some popcorn stitches have many more double crochet stitches than this one. This one is a narrow popcorn, so it has only 3 stitches. Now, to work this first popcorn stitch, we remove the hook from the working loop, insert the hook under 2 strands of the 3rd chain. So this is a little fiddly. That's the front of the V and then under the back of the V of the 3rd chain. Then replace the loop back on the hook and pull the working loop through the 2 strands of the chain 3. Then chain 1 to close the popcorn stitch. Now, the next step, chain 2. Then the next stitch is another popcorn stitch, and with this one we yarn over, insert in the next stitch, yarn under, I do, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, and we will make 2 more double crochet stitches in the same place. Okay, now I've removed my hook from the working loop. Insert the hook from front to back under the 2 loops of the first double crochet. Insert the hook back into the working loop. Pull that loop through the first stitch and chain 1 to close the stitch. So now we have 2 popcorn stitches. Chain 2, we'll do 1 more of those and then I'll skip forward. 3 double crochets in the same stitch. Remove the hook, and as you can see, I kind of extended it up a little bit before I pulled the hook out. That's just to keep it from coming undone. Insert the hook in the first double crochet of that set of 3. Insert it back in the working loop. Pull the working loop through the first stitch. Chain 1 to close the popcorn. Okay, I've worked around a little bit. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 popcorns. We need to do 4 more. And just wanted to bring to your attention that I have come to the end of the yarn that was in that little scrap ball. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to attach some more yarn with a fisherman's knot. I lay the yarn, the working yarn, straight and flat on the table. Let me find another bunch of yarn. Here's another bunch of yarn. Then I lay that yarn flat next to the first strand in 2 opposite directions, like 2 trains passing in the night. Then, actually, let me put them this way. Then I take the working yarn of the piece that's currently being worked on, and I cross it over this yarn tail here, pull it behind and make a circle with that strand and push the end of that strand down into the hole that I just made, into the circle. But the whole time I do this, I am trapping this yarn into it. Then I pull on the strand, so I have tied a knot that captures this new strand into the old strand. Then I hold the old strand that way in my fingers, and I make another circle around it with the new yarn. Hang on a second. There we go. There we go. Like that. I make a circle with the new yarn around the strand of the old yarn and make a knot, tie a knot in it, tie it tightly, pull it tightly. Now I have two knots. The ends are knotted around the other strand. So I pull on both strands until the knots meet each other in the middle. Then I cut both strands off close to the knot, the ends off close to the knot. And that is a fisherman's knot. And as you can see, there are some little ends that look kind of frayed. If you wish, you can carefully trim those close to your knot. You don't really need to worry about it too much because this knot will become hidden. Now, within the stitches, you cannot do this with knitting, but with crochet, you can get away with it just fine. Okay, now I'm going to insert my hook back in my work. So I have just made my last popcorn, and I did a chain 1 to close it and then chain 2. Now I'm ready to make the next popcorn. Yarn over, insert, yarn under, pull through, yarn over, and pull through twice. And then add 2 more double crochet stitches to that same location. And notice that knot. You can barely even see the knot, but it's right there. And this just so happened to have hidden itself on the back of the work. Sometimes the little knots show up on the front of the work, but once you get the whole piece done, you don't even notice it. Okay, continuing on with the popcorn. Chain 1 to close it, and then chain 2, and continuing on. Okay, let's count how many popcorns we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And I need one more right there. But before I do that, I want to chain 2. Okay, let's count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 popcorns and a chain 2, and we slip stitch to join in the top of the first popcorn, which is right there. Okay, we have now finished round 2. And look what's about to happen. I'm about to run out of yarn again. So I'm going to attach the new yarn and I'll be right back. Okay, I have now added my next length of yarn with a fisherman's knot, and we'll keep going. The next step is to slip stitch into the next chain 2 space, and then chain 3 to equal a double crochet, work a second double crochet, well actually it's the first double crochet, and then chain 2 to make a corner, and then 2 double crochet in the same space, and we now have our first corner. The next step is we make 3 half double crochet stitches in the next chain 2 space. And there's our knot. And then 3 half double crochet stitches in the next chain 2 space. Where did that knot go? I think it's right there. 2, 3. Okay, so we've got the first corner and 2 sets of 3 half double crochet stitches for the side, and the next thing we do is create the next corner. So we do 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets in the same space, and we now have the first side, 2 corners and 2 sets of 3 half double crochet. Continuing on, repeating the 2 sets of 3 half double crochets and then another corner, and continue this on around till you get back to the beginning. Okay, we now have our 4 corners and our 4 sides completed. So the next step is to slip stitch to join in the top of the chain 3, and you can insert your hook under those 2 strands, or you can insert your hook under these 2 strands, whatever you prefer. I prefer this because it just looks a little bit more authentic, even though it is a bit challenging to get that through there. Okay, so now we've done the slip stitch to join, and I'm going to slip stitch in the next stitch, and this is just to get myself to the corner, and then slip stitch in the corner, and then there's that yarn splitting. You see how that did that? Okay, to start round 4, chain 3, which equals a double crochet stitch, and we're going to work another double crochet, chain 2, and 2 double crochet stitches in that same corner. Now, because we're already squared off, we don't need to use half double crochet stitches. We can use double crochet stitches in between the sets of 3, or the sets of stitches. So in the next space, we'll do 3 double crochet stitches, and another set of 3 double crochet stitches between these 2 sets of 3, and another between these 2 sets. This is a set of 2 and this is a set of 3 stitches. Okay, so we now have the first corner and 3 sets of 3 double crochets along the side, and we will just continue on around with that same sequence. Okay, I just unraveled a stitch. As you can see, we've gone all the way around the square. We have 4 corners made up of 2 double crochet, chain 2, 2 double crochet, and on each side we have 3 sets of 3 double crochet each. I have to do one more in that space, and the next step is to work a needle join or an invisible join. So I snipped my yarn at about 6, 7, 8 inches in length. I am reaching for one of my yarn needles. I pull the thread all the way out through the last stitch. Thread the end into the yarn needle. And I'm going to join, but I'm not joining in the top of the chain 3, because if I did that I would have an extra strand, because that last, the loop that we're going to make covers over and replaces the top of the chain 3. So instead I insert my hook in the top, or my needle, under the top 2 strands of the first double crochet of the round. Front to back, pull the yarn, then insert into the last stitch of the round from front to back under only the back loop. Front to back. Now gently adjust the tension of that loop that you just created. This V right here is the joining stitch. Now this is important to finish this off. First of all, can you see that there is nothing there except that V? But look at these other stitches. In addition to the V at the top, there's also a strand that's below it. So we need to imitate that, but we do that by working on the back. So what I'm going to do is top to bottom, it's bottom to top because I've turned it over, under that back strand of the double crochet stitch. Then I come over here to the top of the first double crochet, top to bottom, or whatever, bottom to top since I've turned it over. And now I have created that third strand. Well, you can't see it, but it's there. Then I proceed to weave in my ends. Going back and forth at least 2 times if possible. 3 times is even better. being careful not to pull too tightly. And here is where I can bridge that gap and make that additional strand. Okay, let's snip that yarn. This is the back of the piece, and the next step, actually the last step, is weaving in this end of the yarn. And I try to figure out which direction it's already going, and I continue on in that direction. If you want to here, you can cinch it tighter. I kind of like that hole in the middle to be a little more visible, so I'm not cinching it as tightly. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. Whatever you do, if you're making a whole blanket, make every motif the same as all the other motifs. And then, to even make it more secure, go back the other direction. And snip the yarn close to the fabric. And your motif is now finished. There you have your solid single color motif. Steal my ball of yarn. You did steal my ball of yarn. What am I gonna do with you? You're such a sweet kitty. But I just made that ball of yarn for me. Oh, aren't you sweet? You're just trying to make friends with me. Yeah. Look at you. You're just such a sweet kitty. Such a nice girl. Look at you, you're so cute. You're irresistible. Yeah, irresistible kitty. Where are you taking that ball of yarn? Hmm? What do you think you're doing with that ball of yarn? You're too cute. Such a cute baby kitty. Yeah. You're such a nice girl. Pretty black baby. Yeah. Soft, furry, silky baby. Such a good girl. I'll take my yarn. Thank you.